In today's video, we're up at the home of the British Grand Prix Silverstone, where I'm going to be taking part in my very first sprint races. This time, there's no one sharing the car with me, so it's all up to me to try and get a good result. We're racing Rocket Dogs Racing Mazda 2 in the two 15-minute races, where there was no lack of thrills as both races were filled with wheel-to-wheel racing, the most I've ever done in my racing career, making it the most enjoyable racing to date. While this Mazda 2 is the slowest on the grid, I'm going to have to use all my driving skill to try and finish ahead of the more powerful cars that are on track, and with Silverstone being a very high speed track, this is going to prove more difficult than it is said. And with that, let's get to trackside at Silverstone and start the video. Hello YouTube and good morning from Silverstone Circuit, where today we're out here racing. Yep, we're here racing at Silverstone. We're here in the Rocket Dog Mazda 2. So what are we here for? So today we're not doing endurance racing, we're doing sprint racing. So it's going to be my first ever sprint races. We're here with the Welsh Drivers Racing Association. Yeah, so we've got two 15-minute sprints, got 15-minute qualifying, two 15-minute sprints. So it should be a fun one. We're racing against a couple of Fiestas, and we're racing against Colin in the 133 Mazda 2 as well, the Two Racing UK Mazda 2. Yeah, it's morning, I'm not quite awake yet. But yeah, you can see them all behind me. We're racing out with silhouettes as well, so that's going to be interesting. They're a lot of power. It's basically going to be like Cub Enduro, where it's going to be moving out the way a lot. I'm not too sure how well we're going to do, considering that we're using a national track. It's basically a power track anyway. Obviously with the Mazda 2, it's not quite as quick as the Two Racing UK's Mazda 2 or the Fiesta. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. We're just going to hear for the experience. Obviously we're back here again for the Birkett Relay in a month's time for me. Obviously video wise, I'm not too sure whereabouts it's going to be. So yeah, be good practicing. And yeah, let's get to qualifying. Let's just get straight to it. So here we go then, out for qualifying then at Silverstone. Now there's going to be two major problems with this qualifying session. The first one being, in the race itself, we're going to be racing with the WRDA Championship alongside the Silhouettes. Now in this qualifying session there's actually two other championships as well, qualifying at exactly the same time. So there's going to be four sets of championship races, all fighting for position on track, which is going to make it pretty difficult to get a good lap in. Now we'll get to the second problem with qualifying in a little bit when we get there, but for this first part of qualifying then, I'm basically just going to stick behind Colin in the Two Racing UK Mazda 2 as we come down the Wellington Straight as we get overtaken by the Silhouette car. I'm just going to try and use Colin as a slipstream. You just see then my Mazda 2 isn't quite as quick in a straight line, but as we come up then to Brooklands, he's just going to let us through down the inside. I think Colin at the time was trying to get his tyres a bit more warmed up, so he just let me through as I was pretty much tailgating him for the last two laps. And as we come up to the Wellington Straight a couple of laps later, here's a good example of just how busy this track is on this qualifying session. Luckily Silverstone's a pretty wide track, so most of the cars can get past with ease, but if this was on a quite tight and technical track, this would have been a lot more difficult to try and manage. Then coming into Copse Corner then, once again we're just going to get stung with a lot of heavy traffic as I'm basically stuck on the outside then coming through Copse. I'm in the wrong gear at the time, it's just so many cars just trying to get their way through me. Because I was in the wrong gear, it does put me at a disadvantage and coming out of the corner. And as we come down then to the back corner, Colin manages to get through us then on the right hand side. We're trying to stick it around the outside, but it's not gonna quite work as Colin manages to get his car ahead, and because he's in the more powerful Mazda 2, he's gonna start flying away as more cars once again just finding their way through.
So I'm hearing you asking then, what was the second main problem with this qualifying session? As we come up to Copse Corner then, you'll notice there's double waved yellows, and this is about a third of the way through the session as that Volvo does overtakers under double waved yellows. A very naughty thing to do. Anyway, there's a car on the left hand side then through Copse which has found his way onto the gravel trap. Now this double waved yellows actually lasted for the rest of the session, which means we couldn't go as quick as we wanted to through Copse Corner, which means that's basically the qualifying session over. It only really lasted them first 5 minutes. Yes, we're out on track for the rest of the time, but we had to slow down through Copse Corner with them double waved yellows. And just to top it off then, unfortunately the session was finished a little bit earlier than expected with this red flag, and because we were close to the end of the qualifying session, we were all brought in instead of being allowed to go back out. So with the end of qualifying then, how did we actually do? Well, with the slowest car on the field, we actually didn't qualify last. We actually beat the Ford Fiesta ST150 then by exactly a second. So I'm going to take that. But the question is now though, can we actually beat the ST150 in the race conditions? Well, of course, we've got to get to the race for that. But first, let's get back to trackside and let's just see how qualifying went.
Guys, that is qualifying done. Bit of a hectic session that was. I don't know where I've quite come yet. Just come off. I could have gone quicker, but it is what it is, unfortunately. But we'll see where I come. I'll put it here, if wherever I come. Apparently I haven't come last though, so I haven't properly looked at the times yet. Still a T behind me. Obviously they're calling at the start. I was trying to warm his tyres up, so hopefully that's going to play a big part in race 1 and race 2. But yeah, we'll see what happens. If I can get past Colin, then it's going to be nothing but spending until he warms the tyres up. It shouldn't be as hectic in the race. Then we have got the Silhouettes, the really glow quick cars in the race as well, and they're starting behind, so they're going to play a part in the start of the race. So that one's going to be interesting. But yeah, that's qualifying done. First race coming up, 15-minute race, the first sprint race. So yeah, let's just see how it goes.
And just like that then, it's time to get over to the assembly area to finally take place in my very first sprint race then in the Mazda 2. And here we go then, out on the green flag lap for a rolling start. And the main three competitors here are going to be the two Mazda 2s and that red Ford Fiesta ST150. So here we go then, coming down the main straight, ready for the flag to be dropped for this rolling start. And the flag is dropped and we finally go racing. Unfortunately, the right hand side does not get as good as a start as the left hand side, so unfortunately I'm just going to lose a position to that ST150 straight away, and so does Colin coming through Copse Corners. That ST then is gaining 2 positions over us Mazda 2 lot. Now we have got the Silhouettes behind us, as for whatever reason they started behind us instead of in front of us, so we're going to have to be a bit wary for when they finally catch up to us. But Colin there going to try around the outside around this back corner as we come down the Wellington Straight. That ST150 is just going to show then that it's got a bit more power than not only my car but also Colin's car as well. So all I can do at this point then is just sort of sit back and watch the other cars start driving away. But if we get to Brooklands and Luffield, then hopefully we're going to start clawing it back a little bit. Coming up to Brooklands then, we are going to actually catch up to Colin and that Fiesta, and coming through the entrance of Luffield, we're right behind Colin now, and he's going to try on the outside of the ST150. But here's where the Silhouettes then are going to start overtaking us. You can just see then how much more quicker they are, which is quite a surprise that they started behind us and not in front of us, especially when the pack is quite bunched up at the start of the race. But once again then, Colin and the Fiesta starts getting away as we get into lap number 2. And I would imagine you'd all want to watch something a bit quicker than a Mazda 2. So we're going to jump into James Harvey's Porsche Boxster at the start of the race then, as you can just see the front two completely get away that are part of the guest class, as it's just James Harvey against the 2 Mazda RX-8s. That's also going to explain them why the right hand side just didn't get a good of a pull off as the left-hand side, as the front guy on the right-hand side just did not want to stick with the guy on the left. But James Harvey then is going to go down the inside then of the first Mazda RX-8. He's not going to quite get it right here as the two RX-8s start pulling away, but as the Porsche Boxster has a lot more power than these RX-8s, and James Harvey is really then going to exploit that extra power as he gets past that first RX-8, and as we come to Brooklands, and he's going to look down the inside of the second RX-8, goes for a great dive, but can he get the position made, and can he make it stick as he's going to come through Luffield then around the outside. Unfortunately, the Rocket Dog Mazda RX-8 is just going to get ahead then coming through Luffield. But like I say, James has got a lot more power in that Porsche Boxster, so hopefully then with the slipstream he's going to manage to pull it back as he comes into lap number 2. Now this is a bit more exciting than watching a Mazda 2, but coming through Copsen, he's going to look down the inside of the RX-8, just using that extra power that Porsche Boxster has. Down the inside, has he made the move stick? Well, if we look on the left hand side, that Rocket Dog RX-8 is still there as they go side by side then coming down to Maggots in this back corner, whatever you call this back corner on a national circuit. But as we come to the corners, down the inside, once again still side by side with that RX-8. Now you'd think being on the inside you get the move done, but that RX-8 is just being really stubborn and does not want to give up that position. And as we come down the straight then, the Porsche Boxster once again, James is just going to really pull along the RX-8, and he's going to get the move done then coming into Brooklands for the second time. And that's James Harvey then ahead of the two RX-8 and ahead of his class. But of course, back to the real race then with the Mazda 2 as we're catching up to the Ford Fiesta ST150 on lap 3. Coming down to the back corner, we're going to see some weakness from the Fiesta as we try around the outside of this back corner as we just brake a lot later than the Fiesta can. But unfortunately, with the power that Fiesta has, coming down the Wellington Straight, it's just going to get a much more better exit, well, much more speed coming down the Wellington Straight, which means we can't really take advantage then of braking later. But we know then there's a bit of weakness in that Fiesta, so we're going to try and see if we can exploit it somewhere. Coming to Brooklands then for the third time, once again it's going to see if we can brake later than the Fiesta. We do, but we're just going to look down the inside, we just can't quite get there. The tyre's just not giving us the grip realistically that we'd like to have. As we come around at Luffield, we're going to try around the outside, have a look anyway, but not get any sort of move done. And coming up to Woodcote then and coming into lap 4, once again that Fiesta's just going to start pulling away, but we know, like I said, there's a weakness in that Fiesta and we really want to try and exploit it. Coming on to lap 5 then, the Silhouettes are once again going to let themselves through. They're just so much more quicker around this track than us. But I'm going to see then if we can take advantage with these quicker cars. Go look down the inside of the Fiesta, don't quite get it. But as we come through Luffield, once again the Silhouettes are going to get themselves through. But because they sandwich the Fiesta at the exit of Luffield, I'm going to try and get a cutback here. But once again, just because the Mazda hasn't got the power that Fiesta has, I just can't quite get that cutback. And unfortunately just going to have to concede the position once again. But like I said, we know we can brake a lot later than this Fiesta, so that's what we're thinking. And coming into Copse corner, we can brake later, we can carry more speed, so we're going to try and get side by side at the exits. We come through Copse then as the Fiesta is going to go down the inside, go for that defensive line. We could have taken more speed around that corner, we didn't quite use all the track, but we're side by side with the Fiesta now. The Fiesta is going to start pulling away, but we're a lot closer coming down to this back corner, so we're going to try maybe around the outside once again. Then as we do, we try around the outside, we're going to try a cut back here because the Fiesta goes wide at the exit. But once again, we're just nowhere near this Fiesta and we want to try and get closer to that Fiesta so we can brake later. But this lap, once again, we're just going to have to try and concede it.
He was all over, just got two sideways coming into it.
Then to lap 9, that Fiesta's built quite a gap on us now, but the Silhouettes are still lapping us, and because of that, they actually lap the Fiesta coming into Copse corner, which means the Fiesta has to go very wide, and because of that, we can take full advantage here, get full speed through Copse, and manage to get the overtake done at the exit of Copse corner. We finally gotten past that Fiesta. The question is though, that Fiesta's quicker in a straight line, so can we keep the position? As we come down to the back corner, and we're just going to take the normal racing line and get the move done, but we know the Wellington Straight is pretty big. Hopefully we can keep it. The end of lap 9, you can just see me looking over to the left then, and there is that Fiesta. Unfortunately, it overtakes us once again coming into lap 10 and coming to Copse corner, and hopefully maybe try around the outside of Copse, but unfortunately the Fiesta's just going to go defensive. I just can't really get the momentum around the outside of Copse corner, and the Fiesta has just gotten past us once again, so that hard work has been undone, unfortunately. So it's just got to try and hope then and try and get past it in the next couple of laps. But that Fiesta once again is building a bit of a gap again, so coming down to this back corner, we just can't get anywhere near it, and we know we're not going to get anywhere near it come the end of the Wellington Straight. So hopefully maybe it makes a mistake coming the last couple of laps. Final lap, we're coming down to the back corner once again. We haven't managed to find our way past this Fiesta, but we're now towards the end of the race. I'm going to try and go a lot more aggressive here, look around the outside. Unfortunately, we're just not going to see it at all. The silhouettes once again lapping themselves, so yeah, there's nowhere I can get past this Fiesta, and unfortunately the GoPro dies towards the end of the race. So here is the classification, and unfortunately we didn't finish in front of the Fiesta. Colin in the other Mazda 2 did pretty well then to manage to pretty much fly away from us two, and James Harvey does indeed finish ahead of the two RX-8s.
Right guys, that's race 1 done. Exciting race, a bit frustrating to be fair, more than exciting I'd say. Just been stuck behind that Fiesta ST, really frustrating. The corners I'd have it, but then as soon as I got to the straights I just had no chance in the straights at all. Obviously I managed to get past her as well, using the traffic, but then coming out start finish straight next lap. Tried the defensive line but just couldn't do anything about it unfortunately. But it is what it is. I did mess up at the start a little bit, but yeah, it is what it is. We've still got one more race, which is actually quite nice instead of just doing one race and then going home. So I've got one more race to sort of find a bit more speed, try and get past that Fiesta. That is the goal, to beat that Fiesta in this next race. And yeah, let's just see how it goes. Just need to build up enough of a gap to just keep it behind really. As soon as I've built up enough of a gap to keep it behind, and I can get it to a point where she's going to attack on the straights, I can just get away in the corners. So yeah, one more race, race 2. Hopefully it's as exciting as race 1. But yeah, one more race, let's get it. Let's get in the car.
And after everyone checks out what a real racing machine looks like, it's finally time to get ourselves strapped into the Mazda 2 for the second race of the day. So here we go then, race number 2, once again a rolling start, and because we were last in the first race we are going to be starting dead last in this second race, but we're hoping we can get a better start this time. Unlike the first race, try and maybe pick up a position from that Fiesta or Colin in the Mazda 2. And the flag drops and we go racing for race number 2 here at Silverstone. We get a better start than we did in race number 1, but unfortunately we just can't quite keep up with the pack, and we're going to try and take advantage here as the Fiesta goes a little bit wide trying to overtake Colin, which allows me down the inside of the Fiesta. But unfortunately that Fiesta is just going to be a little bit quicker as we've seen in race number 1, and she's just going to slip on by once again. Coming out to this back corner then, have a good look at that inside as she does leave the room there, but unfortunately I'm just not going to take it. In hindsight, yeah, I probably should have shoved my car into that gap as I know I can brake later than her, but unfortunately at the time I just got a little bit scared, and the Fiesta down the Wellington Straight is just going to really pull away, as well as Colin, who this is literally all we see of him in the race. But if we skip back to the start of the race then, let's see how James Harvey managed to get on in his Porsche Boxster. As the flag drops then the race starts, and the Mazda RX-8 on the left hand side manages to get a great start as they go side by side coming through Copse corner, as the RX-8 actually manages to slightly pull ahead of James there, but we all know that Porsche Boxster's got a lot more grunt than the RX-8, so James is definitely going to take advantage here then, coming down to the back corner. But is the RX-8 going to be stubborn once again and try and stick it around the outside? Well, of course he is. He's just there. You can just see his wheel on the left hand side, but he must go wide then because James manages to stay ahead at the exit then of the back corner, unlike the first race. As he's ahead then at the back corner, he's just going to use that grunt of the Porsche Boxster to stay ahead of the RX-8s. But back to myself in the Mazda 2 as we come on to lap 4 then. The Fiesta is still in our sights, and coming through Copse Corner we've got a lot more confidence now as we really gain on this Fiesta then, coming through Copse Corner, taking a lot more speed through this corner now. Obviously down the straights we still can't quite catch up to it, but coming down this back corner I want to be more aggressive and I want to overtake this Fiesta in this race. So coming down to the back corner we're going to have a good look around the outside, and as the Fiesta goes defensive, takes the inside line, so I'm just going to go around the outside. Hear the tyres squealing as they're trying to fight for grip. We go side by side coming up to the Wellington straight. At this point I'm like, right, I'm a lot closer to this Fiesta now. Hopefully we can try and get a good dive bomb coming into Brooklands, but fortunately a yellow flag's going to appear at Brooklands, which is going to stop any attempt at me going for a dive bomb. Well, skipping a lap later then, you see the Fiesta's quite far ahead, but we just see then how much more I can gain on the braking zone coming into Brooklands. And at this point we've got James Harvey behind us ready to lap us, so I look around the outside and stick it around the outside hoping for a cutback. As you can see, James then about to pop through in his Porsche Boxster. Unfortunately a cutback doesn't really pay off at this point, but if we do skip back then to James's point of view, you'll just see then how almost difficult it is to overtake these back markers. Obviously you've got to be predictable under blue flags, so I stake around the outside and stick to that line, but James manages to get past both me and the Fiesta pretty nicely without holding them up too much. Now obviously the Fiesta is getting away, but we know how much more speed we can take through Copse Corner, and we know that they've got the RX-8s then that are chasing James down behind us as we come through Copse. And just look on the right hand side, we'll see the RX-8 coming through. It's just going to compromise mine a little bit, but it's going to compromise the Fiesta's exit, and we know last race that we actually managed to take advantages out. Unfortunately this time around we can't quite do that here, but like I said, in this race I want to be more aggressive. So coming down to the back corner then, I'm going to go for a slightly different approach. I'm actually going to stick it down the inside instead of trying it around the outside like I have done for the last few laps. Unfortunately the Fiesta just completely parks it on the apex, which means I just can't get the momentum that I need out of the corner to try and have another look down Brooklands at the end of the straight. So unfortunately this time round it's going to be another failed attempt. But just up the road then we're going to have the second RX-8 coming lappers, which actually is going to play in our favour here, as the RX-8 then is going to go around the outside of the Fiesta. The Fiesta must go a little bit slow for it, but it's just going to allow us then to get side by side with it on Gruffield. Just going to try and get through the tyres, absolutely squealing, use all the track that I can, probably a bit too much, but obviously the Fiesta is going to start getting away coming down the straight. But we know then that we're quite close to it, as I get quite frustrated then that I can't get past this Fiesta coming into lap 7, coming through Copse Corner. Can we manage to really catch up now and really use all the speed of the Mazda 2 through the corners? We do catch up, but once again we're not quite there. We're just going to slip into the slipstream of that Fiesta and get real close coming down to this back corner, just to hope maybe try around the outside. And at this point then, coming to the back corner, I'm just going to think outside, inside, outside, inside, having a good think. The Fiesta goes on the inside, but I'm just going to go around the outside. Now the Fiesta does what I was hoping she was going to do the last lap and does go wide at the exit of this bottom corner. So unfortunately I just chose the wrong decision this time, and it's just another lap where unfortunately I just can't get past her. Lap number 8 now, as we get another good run through Copse. We're really starting to bring that Fiesta in before the Fiesta's power can really take advantage. Coming down to the back corner, and at this point we want to get aggressive, and we know we've determined now to go around the outside, so we brake a lot later. Once again we actually get the overtake done around the corner, but coming up the Wellington straight then, I'm just going to stick it down the inside. I'm just going to give her just enough room then on the outside of the track, because we know she's just going to get right past with the power of that Fiesta. So here I'm just going to slip into the slipstream, and I know I'm as close as I ever am coming into Brooklands, as we're going to try and get a good dive bomb down the inside. Unfortunately, I'm just going to get a bit scared. I'm just going to back out of that one. That's probably going to be the best attempt we're going to get around that corner. But we've got the silhouettes behind us once again. They're also we're gonna have to let them through, and because the Fiesta does that, we're gonna try and cut back then outside of Luffield, get side by side once again. But then just the Fiesta is just far too quick then coming down to Cops, and unfortunately it's gonna be another failed overtake. But of course, it's not going to stop us to try and overtake her once again as we come into lap number 9 now. Coming through Cops, we're just going to brake so much later at this point. We are very determined to get past this Fiesta. Look around the outside of Cops, then on the exit, we managed to get the overtake done. But once again, we know this Fiesta is going to start flying back with that advantage that it's got. And we've got these silhouettes then coming to the lappers. And unfortunately, there's a BMW on the left-hand side, which I got very cautious over, thinking it was just going to plant itself around the outside. Now, obviously in hindsight, I wish I just stuck it around the outside, because I probably would have gotten the overtake doing it right here. But the BMW once again still isn't through. Obviously to him, he's got to be cautious as he doesn't know what I'm going to do. Same with me to him, it's just all about being cautious. But the BMW then finally gets its way through down the Wellington Straight, and the Fiesta once again has built up quite a gap again. And on to the penultimate lap then, as we come to Brooklands. Once again, we're just gonna brake as late as we can, take as much corner speed as we can, to a point where the tyre's gonna start to give then the rear end wanting to come round. We managed to correct it and try around the outside of Luffield. We're gonna get side by side once again with the Fiesta. We're not gonna quite complete the overtake, but as we come down Woodcut up into Cops then for the final time, the Fiesta's just going to get ahead, but we know we're a bit closer than we are from, well, the last 12 laps that we've done. And once again, I want to get aggressive now. I want to get this overtake done. Coming into Cops then, we're just going to brake at the very last minute, try around the outside of the Fiesta. We're not going to quite get there. The Fiesta goes down the inside, then takes the defensive line. We're going to slip into the slipstream, and like I say, we're going to get aggressive, and we're actually going to take advantage then of these silhouettes getting past us, as the Fiesta allows them to get through. It also opens the gap for me to get through. We actually get the overtake done this time on the final lap, but for whatever reason, I'll go on the right hand side instead of staying in the middle of the track, and I'm just going to look to the left then just to wait for that Fiesta to come through. And I know exactly what I've done, as you can see here in my frustration. For whatever reason, I just stuck it around, well, I put it on the outside of the track and not in the middle. If I stuck around the middle, I probably could have got a good dive bomb then coming down here, as I would have been the closest I'd ever been throughout the last 2 races. But we're going to try around the outside then of Luffield. We're going to try and get an overtake done, but unfortunately we're just not going to see it. And unfortunately, at the time I didn't know it, that was the final attempt to get an overtake in. And that is it. That's the end of the 2 races as an RX-8 comes through. As we come through Woodcut for the final time, the checkered flag has come out. That is the final race, and I've got to say, it was a frustrating race, but it was a very, very fun race. So it's the first time that we're really doing proper like wheel-to-wheel battling, as we've got the race classification then, and like, no surprise, we do come in at last, but Colin then doing pretty well then to get quite far ahead of us once again, of both me and the Fiesta. James Harvey finishing ahead of the 2 Mazda RX-8s. But let's get the live reactions then from the AI generated footage. Super frustrating, man. That was a silly move from me. I don't know why I went to this inside. I reckon I could have had it there. But that was another fun race. To be fair, I'm frustrated, but it was fun. I can't lie. Finally doing some actual like wheel-to-wheel battling for the very first time is actually really fun. It's just a shame that the power difference is too great for the 2 cars, or else that would have been an easy pass. Oh well, it is what it is. It was a fun race. I just could not get past it, no matter what. I mean, I could get past it, I did a couple of times, but yeah, but the power difference just outweighed it. I just feel like, frustrated with myself for that last corner. Last couple, that down the Wellington Straight for the last time. I don't know why I decided to cut in like that. That was a stupid move. Should have stayed on the inside.
Should have just stayed on the inside. Oh. Right guys, that's the 2 races done. Unfortunately race 2 was a little bit like race 1. So this is James.
Hello.
Remember-
Oh yeah, I'll catch up with you at some point.
That's James, okay. So yeah, race 2 exactly the same what race 1. Made a good couple of moves on that Fiesta. A lot more moves than I did in the first race. I was a lot more confident, especially coming into turn 1. Like I say, did a running outside a couple of times, but it's that power difference to the Fiesta. I just couldn't finish the move. Got her on the last corner as well. For whatever reason, I went on the inside instead of staying in the middle of the track. If I stayed in the middle, yeah, she would have got past me, but I would have had a good opportunity then to dive bomb her coming into the last couple of corners. So yeah, bit frustrated with myself on that one, but definitely drove a lot better than I did in race 1. And luckily, we got a couple of trophies. I'm going to call them the Participation Trophy Awards. But yeah, it's a good wins on the whole day off. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this on YouTube. There's definitely a lot more action in this race compared to the last races we've done. Pretty much the whole 2 15-minute races were neck and neck. We've got one more car race coming up, the Burkett Relay, and I'll be driving Nick Dougal's MRF Mazda 2. So I'll be driving another Mazda 2 for that one. 6-hour race at Silverstone, so that should be a fun one. So yeah, and we've also got the Alton Park Sprint finale coming up in the Yaris. So hopefully we'll fight for second in the championship for that one. So that one should be a fun one. Thank you very much for watching YouTube. Hope you enjoyed these ones. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next video.